Low it downwind. Cessna over the threshold, coming up on the white dot, at or beyond the white dot, left turn first available. I got a high wind coming up on about a half-mile final, clear to land at or beyond. Traffic on the left base, you're following a Cessna down, low off your left. Square it up just a little bit, and then we're going to get you in. Start your descent, though. Start your descent on the base. Traffic on final, give me follow on base. Base traffic, start turning toward the numbers now. High wing coming up on quarter-mile final, take it all the way down to the green. Cessna taxiing on the green, expedite down to the next hard surface. Get me some speed, there you go, go fast. This is going to be good. I got traffic on a mile final. You're following traffic ahead and to your right. High wing coming up on the threshold. Take it all the way down to the green dot.
5 Charlie Sierra, 2 mile final.
A mile final, turn north, and we're going to just make you, we're going to bring you back around. Jet traffic's coming up on about a mile and a half final. Runway 9er clear to land.
Okay, all right, let's listen up, guys. If you're on final for runway 9, I want you to offset to the left. I got a jet that's landing on runway 9. The jet's cleared to land runway 9 if you can make it. If not, just continue straight ahead. It looks like you're going around for the jet. That's fine.
Oh, we had one right in front of us, sir.
Dragger. Let's see, what we got, a tricycle, put it down. Tricycle, put it down. Tail dragger, down to the green dot, then a left turn. Short final here, you cleared land on 9, all the way to the white dot, go down to the white dot. Find somebody to follow out here. Canard, just come to the runway and I might have to just send you around. That'll be fine. And for the jet, you just want to stay in this pattern or you want to go back out for an instrument approach?
Stay in a pattern, Charlie Sierra.
All right, just stay with me here for a minute. And my tail dragger, let's see, over the numbers, go down to the green. And Canard's going to have to go around. Canard, go around. And my high wing here over the runway, keep it airborne. You do not descend. You got a fast guy behind you. Do not descend. There you go. Keep it airborne. As soon as the guy behind you gets slowed down, I'm going to put you down. So keep it airborne. The one that just passed the white dot, make a left turn on the hard surface. All right, my high wing tail dragger, you can put it down now. And Charlie Sierra, let me get you about a mile off. Let's see, Charlie Sierra, I lost. There you are. Make a left-hand turn. I'll try to resequence you here on the downwinds. We'll see how it looks. Short final, you're clear to land runway 9 on the white dot. There you go. And the tricycle left on the hard surface and follow the flagman. Welcome. Thanks for being part of the show. And let's see, just find somebody to follow on the final, and as you get close to the runway, if it's not going to work, we're going to send you around and then try to re-sequence you. Now, who else got sent around that's not back on the downwind? The Canard?
Yeah, Canard.
All right, Canard, there's a Gulfstream up there that went around too. I just lost sight of him, but you're going to make kind of a left-hand turn and stay low. I think Charlie Sierra, what's your altitude?
3,200.
Okay, that'll be fine. Just maintain VFR. I don't know what else is up there above you. Probably most everybody's down here, so just make a left-hand turn. We'll try to get you back here.
Canard's got the jet in tight.
Okay, the RV, maybe an RV-10, whatever, here on final. Keep your speed up and go all the way down to the, aim for the green dot for me. Actually, keep your speed up. There's a guy behind you. Aim for the green dot, and I'm sure that's plenty of room for you to land on runway 9. You're clear to land on runway 9. Number 2, you're going to go down to the white dot. Follow the white dot. Actually, you know what? That's 1,500 feet. You're going to land at the white dot. The spacing looks adequate here. 2 guys on final. You're kind of tight there. Keep each other in sight, and you're going to aim for the white dot. If it's not going to work, we'll come up with a plan B. We might have to send you around. The second guy behind you out there in about a 2-mile final. Are you slow enough to be able to follow that guy in front of you? You need to go around. Well, I probably shouldn't ask that because I had about 5 guys answer me, so I should know better than that. After 35 years, you would think, right? All right. So let me see. The guy who's number 1, it's number 1. What kind of airplane is he? An RV type. All right, RV type. Keep it airborne for me. And I got a fast guy behind you. The number 2 guy over the trees there. Go ahead and put it down on the numbers. My first guy just coming up on the numbers at the over the grass at the numbers. I want you to keep
T-minus 1 minute and counting.
Hello.
Four, 3, 2, 1.
Hello.
Oops. Hang on a second, Chris. We need to hide you. Got that. Hello and welcome to Chris in the green room. Sorry, I'm Amateur Hour again here at Seager Towers. Good evening and welcome to another Thursday night's live stream. Hope everyone's doing well. And before we go on, I would just like to say thank you very much to SkyDemon for sponsoring the live stream. As I've said before, we couldn't do it like this without them. And if you haven't tried it, make sure. What do you mean you haven't tried it? There can't be that many people who haven't tried it. But if you're that person, go over, download yourself a copy and have a look for a 30-day free trial. So let's give you the free hint, which probably should have done this free hint a couple of weeks ago. But here it is today anyway.
Hi, everyone. Sorry I can't be with you this evening, but I hope...
Yeah.
Okay, let me try that again.
Hi, I'm Rob from SkyDemon, and here's another top tip. Sometimes you'll be planning a flight to be undertaken several days in the future, and you may notice that SkyDemon doesn't contain wind forecasts that far ahead. If you have a source of wind data which does stretch out further into the future, you can manually enter it into SkyDemon on a leg-by-leg basis. Within the weather menu, look for Set Wind Conditions for Flight, and then enter the data using the format shown. This function is also useful in cases where you might like SkyDemon to assume zero wind for your flight. Like so. For more information, check out our website or our user manual from within the app.
So there you go, manual wind in SkyDemon.
So what it doesn't mean is that you can't just enter zero wind. It's like I'd like a tailwind or no wind today. Yeah. SkyDemon doesn't give you the opportunity to just zero out the wind.
You sure about that? My storm scope's like that in the airplane. If I'm flying along and there's like a couple of cells and I want to get rid of them, I just press clear on the screen and they all go.
Oh, brilliant!
Cheating.
Is that not how it works?
I have to say, I like the new format SkyDemon top tip. You know, clearly there's other busy people in the SkyDemon office.
There are, and there'll be more glimpses in the SkyDemon office when we have top tips from other SkyDemon people over the coming weeks. So look out for those. Right, what have we got? It must be time for some weather. So let's head on over to Simon Keeling, who sent us in his little video. See if I can, as you already know, because I pressed the wrong one.
He's
Let's
there.
see if I can do it again.
Hi, everyone. Sorry I can't be with you this evening, but I hope that you're having a good one. If you want to see more of me, then why not join me next Wednesday evening, the 2nd of March from 7 p.m. for this exclusive webinar for Fly Club members. It's called Spring Weather Tips for Pilots, and what I'll be doing is just giving you a heads up on some of the main weather features that we may see for flying as we get into spring. As I say, it's there and free for Fly Club members next Wednesday, the 2nd of March from 7 p.m. I know the team will be giving you more details through the course of tonight's live stream, so it'll be great to see you next Wednesday. As if you haven't had enough of me. Anyway, this is how things shape up for tomorrow, for Friday. We've got ridge of high pressure building through the country on Friday. And that's good news. Basically, it means that we're going to be flyable across most areas of the country. A little bit of cloud, perhaps bases 3,000-4,000 feet, nothing worse than that. I think increasing cloud coming through Ireland, just as this warm front moves its way eastwards, may bring a little bit of drizzle to western parts of Ireland, but for most of us it is going to be a better day. Much lighter winds as well. You'll be really pleased to know, thank goodness. And yeah, things looking pretty good for Friday. Now, as we head in towards Saturday, high pressure still with us off towards the east. We see the flow come round more into a southerly direction. Notice as well the isobars quite close together across Scotland and across Ireland, as well as western parts of England and Wales. So fairly breezy out here. Gusts could get up to 30-35 knots, but But across many parts of eastern Wales, southwest England, central eastern parts of England, here we've got lighter winds, and it does look as if it is going to be a decent enough sort of day. Bases probably at around 3,000 feet, tops I think getting up at about 6,000 feet. Always more cloud around out towards the west. You can see it here on the cloud ceiling forecast. So a reminder that cloud ceiling is when we've got more than 5/8 of cloud. So effectively it's broken cloud or more. The green colours there telling us where bases are 2,000 feet above ground level. You can see most of that across northern and western parts. Maybe a little bit of drizzle for northwestern parts of Scotland. But overall, again, Saturday is not a bad day. And then for Sunday, well, on Sunday, we've got a weak front that kind of drags its way eastwards across the country. I think it's probably going to be a little bit further west than shown on here. But again, let's just focus on the cloud colours here, the cloud ceiling forecast. Again, you see there greens and yellows. So the yellows are 1,000-foot bases or more. I do tend to think that across many parts of central eastern Scotland, across much of Wales, across much of central western parts of England, here we're probably going to be into marginal to non-VFR conditions, just with those bases being at that 1,000 to 2,000 foot level. Some cloud shrouding the hills, bits of drizzle around, not great visibility. I'm not sure I'd be cancelling flying just yet. This forecast could change, but it's not looking as good as it will do, for example, tomorrow or in most places on Saturday. Further west, the cloud tends to clear, bases improve to around 2,000 to 3,000 feet, perhaps across the far southeast, sort of East Anglia, southeast England. Here we could find bases of 3,000 foot plus as well. It's just in that in-between area, wherever that front decides to sit, that we are going to see lower cloud and flying conditions not being quite as good. So overall, looks like being a fairly decent weekend, particularly Friday and Saturday are looking the better of the days. Now, hot news is that my next Aviation Weather School Part 1 is going to be held on the consecutive Saturday mornings of the 12th and the 19th of March between 09:30 and 12:30 hours. If you've not booked your place yet, get to weatherschool.co.uk and do it now. It is filling up quite quickly and it would be super to see you there. So if you want to build your confidence in being able to forecast yourself, be able to spot weather windows up to 5 days in advance and forecast cloud bases, tops, visibility, winds, things like that, then Aviation Weather School is definite for you and it would be great to see you there. Okay, I will leave you with that for now. I hope to see as many of you as possible next Wednesday, the 2nd of March at 7 p.m. for the Flyer Club webinar, which is going to be spring weather tips for pilots from yours truly. Okay, I look forward to seeing you there. Don't forget to get your place booked at Aviation Weather School now at weatherschool.co.uk. But that's it for me for now. Keep the sun shining and bye for now.
There you go. Thank you very much, Simon. So just a quick note about what's ahead. We're going to do the news. At the end of the news, we have a very quick game of Play Your Cards Right, because the gamma figures are out. So get ready for that. Then we're going to be talking to Chris Taylor, test pilot who's flown more types than you can list in a short list. It's a very, 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 very long list. And he's got a book coming out called Test Pilot very shortly. So looking forward to that. Then we've got Fantasy Hangar and all the usual stuff. And if you're not a club member, join and like and subscribe and comment and all that stuff. Anyway, let's get on to the news. Dave, you're up first. What have you got? And I'll see if I can get the right pictures up this time.
Well, first story is just a reminder that we've got a new issue of Flyer out. And we talked about it last week, where we talked mostly about the main stories. So this week, I thought I'd highlight some of the other nuggets in the issue. So in our series called I Get Paid for This, which looks at people who work in flying, we focused on a guy called Andrew Davis, who's the chief pilot of Navy Wings. Fascinating story. He gets to fly some lovely aeroplanes. First solo is all about the inspiring Claire Lomas and her flex-wing microlight flying. We had her on the live stream a little while ago. There's a look behind the scenes at what happens when Distress and Diversion, D&D, receives a pan call from a pilot. What actually goes on to help that pilot get back down on the ground safely. Ed Bellamy, the man who could understand what the CAA say and write, he's reviewing plans for airspace changes. Dave Hirschman, our US correspondent, writes about flying. He was flying too exuberantly. So he was flying a bizjet, and he was flying it as though he's flying his vans. Mark Hales remembers the fun of flying on Christmas Day, mainly to get away from the relatives. Ian Seeger examines the CAA's own end of 2021 score report and came up with this fantastic phrase, a sea of obfuscatory corporate speak. I filed that one away to use. And finally, I'd like to mention that safety editor Steve Ayres on the safety analysis column, he writes about the importance of checks and using checklists.
Excellent. Yes. Good. So make sure you go to issue.com/flyer digital, read that copy. That would be great. Next news item is from me. So Eagle. Well, Eagle is a new thing that came about yesterday. I had to write this down. It stands for Eliminate Aviation Gasoline Lead Emissions. It was made up in the US. Basically, all of the US organizations have got together. So AOPA, EAA, GAMA, FAA, and are working on a plan to get rid of lead out of aviation, out of avgas, basically, by the end of 2030. They set themselves some target. Now, I think that they probably got a copywriter from the CAA over to write the press release, because the press release is full of stakeholders, partnerships, symposiums, detailed work plans, and all that kind of guff that people write. I mean, can you imagine trying to get a press release through all those organizations? No, I think we need another stakeholder in here, Bob. But anyway, they're going to talk about it, and frankly, I suspect they'll probably get something done. And they need to. They're kind of they set out their principles to say that it can't really damage German aviation, the economic benefits that have to make. So basically, to cut a long story short, we need to be able to carry on doing what we're doing at the moment, and instead of putting 100 LL in the tank, we need to put 100 NL in the tank, I guess. So that's their plan, and it'll be by the end of 2030. And I think, in the UK and the rest of the world where we don't use quite as much avgas as the US, that's probably a good thing that they're taking that on, because that will presumably trickle down. And the one plant in the world that produces ethyl lead in Liverpool, we won't all be relying and hoping that doesn't get shut down. So there you go. So
really, that should be easy, shouldn't it? Because we've already, at Oshkosh last year, we heard there's 100 UL. So it's just about making this supply of stuff more widespread. So the faster we embrace it.
Yeah, exactly. I'm kind of guessing that the investment in bulk refining is the amount of money that the refiners will make is probably not huge compared to all the other stuff. So, but who knows? Who knows? Hopefully they'll get it sorted out. Ed, tell us about the. Yes. Oh, I had some graphics there. Hang on a second. Took me 30 seconds to make those earlier.
Yeah.
There you go.
It's almost like you turned fuel into some kind of X Factor style competition then. That was very good.
Yeah, it's one of those, that thing where they turn the seat. Anyway, let's talk about the aeroplane. It's a new aeroplane out.
There's a new 600 kilogram microlight in town. It's the Sparker from TL Ultralight. I know it's a bit of an odd name, but anyway. Even better news, it's been confirmed as coming to the UK from the agent, Peter Ronfell of TL Sting UK. It's for a familiar format, 2 seats side by side, low wing with retractable undercarriage. The airframe is constructed from carbon fibre and has a Kevlar inner shell to protect the occupants, and obviously powered by the ubiquitous 100 horsepower 912 ULS. Figures released by the Czech factory give a VNE of 181 knots and a blistering cruise speed of 162 knots and a stall speed of just 44 knots. Provisional UK price tag £185,000 plus VAT. That's going to be a smidge over £222,000. TL Ultralight says the Spark is a clean sheet design designed to make the most of the new 600 kilogram weight limit. Cabins are used for 1.25 meters wide, wingspan 9 meters, overall length 6.63, and 350 kilograms empty weight. So you've got 250 kilograms to play with. I think that looks pretty damn fine. So I know you're rubbing your chin, Louis, about the cruise performance.
I've never flown a 2-seat side-by-side 600 kilo or CSLSA kind of aircraft powered by 100 horsepower Rotax that's done any more than about 115, 120 knots if you're trying really hard. They just all seem to, and they all seem fairly happy about the 100 knot speed. So how they're planning on getting 162 knots out of this one, even though the gear is retractable, is kind of interesting. And I'm kind of willing to bet that if they can get 162 knots out of it, it won't be any useful height, weight, or power setting. It'll probably be one of those.
Yeah. And probably with some kind of controllable pitch propeller, I'm guessing. Anyway, a nice looking aeroplane. Nice to see something new. Yeah. And
A nice cruise number to take the mickey out of for a while.
That's it, yeah. Hopefully part of the exciting 600-kilogram invasion that's going to take over the UK this year.
Absolutely, yeah. What's it called again? The TL Sparker.
The TL Sparker.
There you go. Quick look at that.
We spoke about it in the Flyer Livestream Extra, which is members only, yesterday, and someone misheard the announcement of TL Sparker and thought we called it the TL Spanker.
There's certainly some weird names for some aircraft, aren't there? I'm guessing we'll see that at Friedrichshafen, won't we?
Yes.
Yeah.
We can go quiz them about the power speed, the speeds that they reckon they'll get. But anyway, you never know. Johnny.
Yeah, Coventry news. So, we all know there is an airport there, but now there is construction of a vertiport for drones, which is happening. So this is going to be built by a startup called Urban Airport, and this thing here is called Air One, and it's going to be opened on the 25th of April. And it's located of the whole area. It's home to 400,000 people living and working close to the train station and other transport links. And it's kind of part of the launch. The company are working with the police, and they're going to provide public demonstrations of unmanned aerial vehicles. And from the 28th to the 15th of May, it will be open to the public for tours. So I reckon we should go up and have a nosy and look around, maybe film a video and see what the future of Coventry aviation looks like.
Stick that in the diary, Johnny. Send us all an invite. Ed, charge up your drone batteries. We'll have to get some aerial shots with the drone.
Dear Lord, yes.
Yeah, let's go up for the day. I still reckon it's gonna.
I've got to say, if you're going to build drone port, I think I'd go for something that had a bit more production value than one of those pop-up McDonald's.
I was going to say, yeah, it does look a little bit strange, doesn't it?
That's it. And apparently, they're looking at the car parking spaces. There's 1, 2, 3. Apparently, only about a dozen people are going to use this coming eVTOL wave. So to the 14 people in Coventry who plan to be urban air mobile, good luck.
Dave, racing time.
Yes, you may remember the Air Race World Championship was announced a couple of years ago. Last year was pretty quiet for them for obvious reasons, but now they're saying that they're going to kick off the Air Race World Championship in May. If you remember, it's a bit like the Red Bull Air Race Championship. In fact, it's so like it. There's many of the same pilots and same teams and same people involved. It's due to kick off in May. It's going to be 7 venues, including one in the UK. And like Red Bull, it will have 2 tiers: the elite top category, and then a sort of a tier 2 challenger category. They've also talked about all sorts of other categories, eVTOLs and things like that, but nothing much seems to be happening on that.
Yeah. I think they need a third category. They need average PPL.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, good idea. And Johnny, you're going to tell us about some taster flights.
Yeah. So the Aviatrix project, which is run by Kanchana Gamage, who was on the live stream back in January, they've got a total of 24 taster flights available this summer for their project for both male and female pilots or aspiring pilots. You've just got to be age 14 or over. Kanchana said it's to encourage young people, particularly women, to believe in themselves and to know that there are no limits or barriers to achieving anything. So if you're in that bracket, then you can apply. The flights are going to take flight from Take Flight at Enstone.
Fantastic.
And also Flying Made Easy at Old Buckingham in Norfolk. And you've got to do them between July and September. And they've also got 20 737 simulator sessions with company in West London, which again is open to people over the age of 14. And the deadline for applying is midday on Monday, the 18th of April. And they're going to announce the winners in May. So if you're watching and you fit that category, get applying. If you don't, then you'll know someone who could. So
there you go. Good. So was it yesterday? I think it was yesterday. The German Aviation Manufacturers Association figures came out for 2021 shipments of airplanes. Now, to give you all the numbers would be really boring and really dull, and frankly, you're probably not that interested in it. So what we thought we'd do is we take the opportunity, I should say, to have a little game of play your cards right. So no expense spared trailer coming up.
You've got the old early days flyer live stream production values.
Yeah. They haven't changed that much, have they? Really?
No.
Okay, so the way this works is I'll read out a number, and you guys have to guess higher or lower. I'm going to start with an easy one. I'm going to start with a very easy one. In fact, worldwide single-engine pistons. Were more delivered in 2021 or 2020?
More in 2021.
Yeah, 2021.
Yeah, higher. Paul Fraser Benetham's got that right. I should have said higher or lower, shouldn't I? Really, the total, not that many more though. 854 in 2020 and 874 in 2021. So only 20 more. Just getting it a little bit more local. In 2020, there were 376 SEPs delivered in Europe. Higher or lower for 2021?
Higher.
I'd say higher.
Johnny's eyebrow suggested lower, but
guys, you've only got a choice of two. It's not difficult. We need to make this quick fire.
I'll make it lower. I'd say lower.
Lower. Well, you're wrong, Dave. It was 376. So actually, the difference was much bigger than the US. 2021, Icon delivered 18 aircraft. Did they do better or worse than that in 2020? Higher or lower?
Lower.
Lower.
No. They were higher in 2021. In 2020, sorry, they did 22 compared to 18. Okay, let's kind of going away from the higher or lower thing here for a little bit. What do you think is the highest selling piston twin in 2021?
Diamond
DA40.
Who said DA40?
No, I was going to say 42.
Okay, because that was definitely wrong.
Because that will get you sacked.
Yep, absolutely right. The A42 sold more piston twins than anything else at 55. Who sold the fewest piston twins of companies that actually have a piston twin to sell? That is, by the way.
Wow.
I was going to
Beach,
say
probably.
Techman, but
You were going to go who, Dave?
Beach craft.
You mean Textron?
Textron, sorry. Yes, Textron.
Yeah. Okay, well, it was a draw. Textron with the G58 sold 0. And Piper with the Seneca 5 sold 0.
No way.
Yeah, if you're interested, Seminole's 15 and the Technam's twin, the 2006 T, sold 28, which was the biggest selling SEP.
Ooh.
Getting away from higher and lower here, I realise that.
Yeah. DA40.
Nope.
No, Cirrus.
SR22T sold a ridiculous 230 aircraft.
Wow.
Mad. Okay, let's just pop on to what was that you just flashed up on screen?
Yeah, no, Paul Fraser Benison and Simon D both guessed Cirrus. Kia Williams went 172.
No, I think 172 sold something like, in fact, let's see. In 2020, the 172 sold 241 examples of that aircraft. Higher or lower for 2021?
Lower.
You're all correct, lower. 166 in 2021. And just, there you go. Let's... the Super Decathlon sold 5 last year. Did the Great Lakes sell more or less than 5? Higher or lower?
Lower.
I'm going more.
Dave?
I said lower. I don't think they can build them faster.
There was one Great Lakes sold, so it was lower. It was lower. Okay, I think that's probably enough of that game. So if you want to know the real figures and get yourself a spreadsheet, go over to Gamma. And there's nothing in this game.
That's it. Richard Kennedy's channeling his inner Brucey.
Inner Brucey. Yeah, it's really good. Okay, well there you go. What else have we got? Good game. Yep. What was his assistant's name? Anthea or something?
Anthea. Yes.
Anthea.
At one time, maybe. Yeah.
I'm missing an Anthea here.
Others, yes.
Ed, you got
he gets the final say. Didn't they do well?
Not really.
Right then.
Okay.
So there's only one other thing left on the news listing, and that's the Mac Solo. So obviously last week we heard that Zara's brother, Mac Rutherford, is going solo, and a few people are going, how's that legal? Because he's so young. And I guess we're also wondering, what about the Ukraine situation? So Ian, I understand you spoke to Sam.
I did. I dropped Sam an email. Sam's Mac's dad and Zara's dad as well, obviously, and said, what's this all about? How is he flying around the world at 16? What's that? And he said, well, basically, it's based on his French ultralight license, which you can get at 15, and heaps and heaps and heaps of paperwork. So I'm guessing that the family must have spent a long time writing to people, squaring this away as a kind of one-off record attempt. So there you go. There's the answer if anybody wants to know. Right. I think it is time to enough of us. I'm going to bring on Chris. Hello,
you
Chris.
Saw him earlier. Now he's really here.
Yeah. There you go.
Oh, right, Chris. Thanks for joining us. How are you?
Well, it's good. I mean, I'm enjoying the green room, but I've had to buy my own wine, so a bit rubbish, but enjoying it so far.
Excellent. You should have put it on the rider.
Good stuff. Right. Well, as we're harking back to old game shows, what's your name? Where'd you come from? What do you do? Give us a quick rundown.
Yeah, the 2-minute CV we call it, don't we? So Chris Taylor. My background is I learned to fly, joined the Navy, flew helicopters for the Fleet Air Arm, ended up at Boscombe Down, and we can chat a lot about that. But I was 10 years at Boscombe Down. I worked for the Experimental Flying Squadron, which did a lot of the research and development flying, which was, I have to say, an incredibly exciting and interesting job. I flew a lot of aeroplanes as well as helicopters. I then went back to ECPS, where I taught people how to do flight test, predominantly initially as a military helicopter pilot. I did 4 years there, still in the Navy, left the Navy, and then ended up working there for 3 more years, teaching flight test in short course variants to a whole bunch of people from across the world. And during that time, I then started to teach fixed wing flight tests. So I went from being a helicopter pilot to being a helicopter test pilot to being a teacher of fixed wing and aeroplane flight test, and then was recruited by the UK CAA about 19 years ago as their fixed wing test pilot for all the light aeroplanes around the UK. So I joined them, did a lot of aeroplane flying. Not too long after joining, I suddenly got the tap on the shoulder saying, well, you're a helicopter pilot, you know a lot about that, and our helicopter pilot's leaving, so could you take on all the helicopter flying? Yes, of course. And autogyros keep crashing, so could you learn how to fly autogyros? Yes, of course. Oh, and could you test all these sort of wacky home-built single-seaters? And yes, of course. So I did that for 10 years. The CAA, as some of you will know, about 8 or 9 years ago, closed down their flight test department because we were part of EASA then. And I became self-employed. So for the last 8 or 9 years, I've run Dovetail Aviation, and I provide flight test services, amongst other things, to anybody that's willing to pay me, basically. But I do a bit of instructing. I'm an aeroplane instructor, gyro instructor, helicopter instructor, helicopter examiner. So, you know, all together, it adds up to a day job.
Brilliant. So how did you get into it in the beginning?
So I used to go to Anglesey for my summer holidays. So when I was a toddler, my mum and dad took me to a place called Aberfrau. And only in the last few years, I realized that was pretty much on the base leg for RAF Valley. And at the time, the gnats were yellow, they became red later, and the search and rescue helicopters were whirlwinds. And I think I must have pretty much sat on the beach every day watching gnats and whirlwinds fly over my head. That and the fact that my dad was in the Air Force during World War II. He joined the Air Force shortly after the war started, desperate to be a pilot. He was a clerk, and the Air Force said to him, we've got no clerks that are fit to go abroad, and we're desperate for fit clerks to send overseas. So be a clerk, and then we'll train you to be a test pilot. He ended up as a squadron clerk for Treble 2 Squadron. They flew Spitfires, as many of you will know, and then he moved to 65 Squadron, and they flew Mustangs. And he went to France shortly after D-Day with 65 Squadron. They advanced just behind the front lines, took part in Market Garden, Arnhem, doing a lot of ground attack stuff. And his stories about aviation just really sowed the seed. So, from a real, as long as I can remember, I wanted to be a pilot. I then read all the Biggles books, as people of my generation did, and then I bought Balsa aeroplanes, and then I bought Airfix kits, and that was it, really. The seed was sown.
Yeah, brilliant. So let's chat about some of the types you've flown and throughout your career. Obviously, the question that would pop into your mind first of all is, what was your favourite? But obviously that's we can be a bit more interesting. So I thought, of all the aircraft you've flown, which one surprised you the most?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, you and I chatted just very briefly, didn't we, this afternoon? And one of the questions I often get is, what's your favourite aeroplane? And that's almost impossible to answer because it really just depends on what the context is. Surprising that there's some very interesting, innovating aircraft out there. I mean, I was lucky enough many years ago to fly the V-22 Osprey simulator and the Space Shuttle simulator, ironically, in the same week when I went out to the States. The V-22, amazing concept, amazing aircraft. If you pour a shed load of money into something, it's incredible what you can do. And the V-22 has turned out to be a very capable aircraft, but a very expensive aircraft. But it's out there and it's flying and it's doing the job it was set out to do. So
that's good. Okay, so to counter that, are there any aircraft that you've flown and you've just been thoroughly disappointed with them?
There are so many. I mean, out of that list of 400, I think we're probably talking, 390 plus, I think. There's an expression in flight test called "your baby's ugly." And I use that expression quite a lot because, as a parent, I'm a grandparent now. I've got 3 grandchildren and, they're adorable, obviously, but we all know some babies come out a bit squished. And, the last thing you can ever say to a mother is your baby's ugly. And the job of the test pilot, I have to say, the hardest part in many respects is to say to the owner of an aeroplane, the manufacturer of an aeroplane, I'm sorry, but in my humble opinion, for a whole bunch of reasons, I don't think your aircraft is that nice to fly, that good to fly, or safe to fly even. We're saying your baby's ugly, and that's a challenge. Perhaps the most disappointing from an individual at the time was as a student at the Empire Test Pilot School back in 1994. I was doing the helicopter course, and we had to write reports on everything we flew. And the reports became thicker and thicker as the year went on. And towards the end of the course, we did what was called a pilot's assessment. And basically, we got to fly an aeroplane for about an hour and a quarter, a helicopter or an airplane, depending on whether we were fixed or rotary wing students. And then we had to write a huge report on it. And the thing about flight test is if something's good, you get a kind of one-line reply. It was satisfactory, it was fine, it's a one-liner. If something is bad or you don't like it, it's almost a War and Peace novel you have to write, depending on the severity of the problem. So you really, as a student at ETPS, hoped for everything to be fine, everything to be nice, everything to be good. And our pilot's assessment was going to be on the McDonnell Douglas 520N helicopter, which some people will know was a NOTAR version of the MD 500. The NOTAR was a brand new concept, and it seemed like one of those kind of too good to be true concepts almost. It was a system whereby, as the pilot applied power, it automatically provided an anti-torque reaction, so you didn't have to mess around with your yaw pedals. It would automatically stay pointing where you wanted it to point, and so on and so forth. And we got that aircraft given to us for our assessment, and I thought, this is going to be great. Everything is going to be satisfactory. Everything's going to be wonderful. I'll write 5 lines in my report, and I'll have an early bath and an early glass of vino, and it'll be great. It was very disappointing, so I have to tell you, there was an awful lot wrong with that aeroplane or helicopter. It suffered from all the problems that the MD-500 had or has, and I can wax lyrical on those. But the NOTAR system itself, whilst it had some good points, and the concept had, it was novel and it could have worked quite well, it had all sorts of problems with it. It had an awful lot of lag in it. It was mechanically difficult. And one of the challenges with this particular aircraft was, without the tail rotor, when you were slowing down, you were totally reliant on 2 vertical fins to keep you straight. So when I did an engine off landing, closed the throttle, ran it onto the ground, I got down to about 30, 40 knots, and all of a sudden I couldn't steer because the tail rotor wasn't there. There were just 2 big fins and a wacky system that blew air through a bucket, but only when the engine was turning. So it had some really, really big issues. And that was the most disappointing, I think, because I was expecting a short report, and then I had to spend 3 weeks writing a very long report.
Bro. So just to go back to a comment that somebody said, Steve McGee, how many types have you flown in total? And are there any you would never want to touch again?
So, types and variants, I've flown just over 400, and I have to caveat that. So there are, in the military, if you move from one variant of a type to another, you do a training course, and so I've counted that in my my list of 400. So if you move from a Mark III Sea King to a Mark IV Sea King, it's still a Sea King, but as Sea King pilots out there will tell you, they are quite different aircraft. The Air Force fly the Mark III, or used to. The Jungly Navy fly the Mark IV. They have quite a different role. They're different systems, different autopilots. So you'll find, if you read my book, there's a list of 400 odd types in the appendix right at the back. Almost certainly, I'll get 400 different people writing in and going, do you know what? That's not really a different type. It's a variant, and it's this, that, and the other. But it's about 400. And are there many I wouldn't fly again? There are some aircraft out there. Well, put it like this: if I've done my job properly, if there's any aircraft out there that is going to kill somebody, I would have tried to stop it flying one way or the other. As you'll know, I used to work for the CAA, so clearly part of the job of the regulator. I know the CAA comes in for a lot of flack, and I'm now on a different side of the fence to what I used to be. But the job of the regulator is to do its level best to make sure that our aircraft is safe to fly. We're in collaboration with the LAA, the BMAA, and all the other regulators or associations out there. But yes, if I came across an aircraft when I was working with the CAA that I thought was dangerous, was not fit to fly, then I would do my level best to stop that aircraft flying. If I'm now encountering, as a freelancer, I now get paid quite often by the manufacturer or the builder of the airplane, I will still do the same. I think one of the core disciplines of the test pilot is honesty and integrity. You've got to be absolutely above board. You can't be you've just got to be totally straight, totally honest, totally whiter than white, because you've got to say, this is not safe, and you can't afford to dilute that message, because lives depend on it.
Yeah. Is there anything that normal pilots can learn from test pilots just in behaviors, in the way you approach operating an airplane?
Drinking heavily, obviously, but don't quote me. I think there's lots of things. I mean, I did. There's a danger that test pilots get very boring, because we're kind of so full of stuff we want to impart. The test pilots do things in an incremental fashion, which is an absolute sort of tenet of being a test pilot, which is an appropriate discipline in flight test. You do something, and if that works okay, you do a little bit more. So if you're trying to work out the fastest speed you can fly at, you fly to 100 knots, and then you creep it up to 101, then you creep it up to 102. That's a very good example of where you very slowly build up to what might be a cliff edge test point. It was interesting that you mentioned, I think, that the Flyer magazine's looking at checklists. And I'm a great believer of both using checklists and not. And so let me caveat that as a test pilot. So that I'm jumping into lots of different types all the time. And so one of the challenges for me is I'm not intimately familiar with the aircraft I'm flying most of the time. So back in the day when I was a WASP pilot and a Lynx pilot, it literally was putting on an overcoat. I leapt in there. I could start the thing in the dark without looking at the switches. I could start a WASP and be airborne in 90 seconds. It was very intrinsic. It was in the DNA. It was just your day job. I'm now leaping into things that I don't fly very often, which I think is typical of a lot of GA pilots. We do have days and days and days when the weather prevents us flying. Many of us who are renting airplanes can only afford to fly once a month. So checklists, I think, are absolutely essential for the infrequent flyer. And I always use a checklist, whatever I'm flying. But I would caveat that, because when I've gone through all the checks, there is always a risk that I've missed something. And I am the first to admit that I have missed lines out of checklists numerous times. You go through 100 checks before you start the thing, and you miss the one line that's important, like turn the fuel on, or whatever it happens to be. So I tend to do a sort of sanity check once I've been through my checklist. Before I start the engines, I go, is the fuel on? Are the electrics on? Yes. I'm about to take off. I've done all the checks, but do I know what I'm going to do? Am I configured for the takeoff? Is the compass tying in with the runway direction? Are the engine T's and P's what they should be? Is the fuel turned on or the booster pumps turned on? Just a sanity check, a sort of look around the cockpit, which has saved my skin, I have to say, a couple of times.
Good. So we've sent a few pictures in which I'll flash up now, and I just thought it'd be interesting for you to just give a really brief first thought and impression that comes to your mind from flying the airplane. Okay, first one.
So if you want to know the story behind this one, you've got to buy my book, which I'm plugging for. So this was just another typical day in the life of a CEA test pilot, where I got called up by one of our CEA colleagues, and a gentleman had decided to put a wing walking rig onto a Stearman and put it onto the G register. A lot of Stearmans in the UK fly on the American register for a whole bunch of reasons. This one was going to go into the G register, and the idea was it would provide fare-paying passengers the opportunity to stand on the wing. So you were going to get onto the wing before you went flying and stand on the top of it, and away you went. So I went to Oaksey Park, leapt into the Stearman to go and fly it. That's me sat in the back of the aircraft there with my blue helmet on. We did tout around for volunteers for the task of standing on the wing, but more seriously, we found a Debenhams mannequin and bolted that onto the wing, which is probably just as well. So they did all the testing. I had to do a VDF dive. I had to dive Stearman as fast as it was able to go, just to see whether we should be putting a speed limit on the airplane. Not for the sake of safety of the passenger at that point, but for the safety and airworthiness of the airplane. And in that dive, somewhere over a wood, somewhere near Oaksey, I had a blurring image fly past my head, which caused me to utter an expletive or two and duck down further into the cockpit. And as I focused upwards, it was a leg. It was a tumbling leg, and it was Fred the mannequin's right leg, which had detached itself and nearly clocked me on the head as it went past. Thankfully, it didn't take out the fin or the rudder. I landed safely and documented it. And another typical day in the life of a CEA test pilot.
Yeah, brilliant. Right, one more quick picture. Marks out of 10 for this aeroplane.
Sea Fury. Yeah, well, I'm a fleet airline pilot, so if you know, quite often you'll see people say on LinkedIn or Facebook, you know, what's the most iconic aeroplane, and invariably the Spitfire comes up. For me as a fleet airline pilot, I'm torn between the Swordfish. You know, the Swordfish pretty much won the Battle of Britain, actually, because it was all about German shipping, and the Swordfish was out there in 1939, 1940, dropping torpedoes and sinking ships. And of course, the Sea Fury, which came along just after the Second World War, but then was quite pivotal in the Korean War. Just the most amazing, you know, single-engine fighter aeroplane of its age. I mean, they're still flying around the world. They're still winning air races, aren't they? And I was lucky enough to take part in an air test of that. And that was the aeroplane that went to the Fleet Air Arm. Sadly, it was crashed a couple of years ago, but yes, an awesome aeroplane.
Brilliant. So talking about the book, where can people get it?
Well, let's see. So I'll show you. Oh, you've got it out there. Absolutely. Great. So
in fact, I think we might have a link actually that we can post in the comments.
Yeah, we can put a link in the comments.
Do. So, I mean, the book is being published by a company called Pen and Sword. I mean, I happen to have a couple of dozen of their books on my shelf already. They are very good at publishing books by pilots. They're very good at publishing military history books. And if you go on the Pen and Sword website, you can pre-order my book now, which I'd recommend you do, because right now they're knocking £5 off the price. So it's £20 instead of the recommended retail price of £25. But you'll also find my book listed on Amazon. WH Smith's are selling it for £20.50. So if you're worried about postage, go and order it at your local Smith's. You can buy it from the Book Depository. They ship it worldwide for free. I couldn't believe that. A mate of mine wants a book. It's going to cost me £30 to post it to America. But the Book Depository ship books worldwide for free. So order from them if you're outside the UK, I would suggest. But yeah, Waterstones, Smiths, Amazon, and Pen and Sword themselves.
Fantastic. Great stuff. Well, Chris. Oh, Ian, have you got a question?
I have a quick question, if I may, and I don't know if you've ever done this or not. Okay, so talking about your sort of test pilot iterative process of testing things.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that you've flew the Lynx as well.
Yes.
Did you? Two questions. Did you ever do a Lynx backflip? And if so, how do you do that iteratively?
No, I didn't. No, I didn't do that. So the Army did that. The Army had a special dispensation through Westland Helicopters to do that. The maneuver, if you've seen it and looked at it, it's not a dynamic loop. It's falling backwards. They do it at a very low speed. And I was privy to the Westland test reports when they did that. And the danger didn't come with the maneuver. It came with the recovery from the maneuver. Because as the aircraft picked up speed and then inexperienced pilots pulled back on the stick too aggressively, that's when damage would be done. But the Lynx rotor system is one of those, it's a very forgiving rotor system if you're going to go upside down, if you're going to experience low G. And, I've got a lot of time for the Lynx. If you're going to land on the back of a ship, do it in a Lynx. There is no doubt. And the Wildcat, I'm guessing, is very similar. I haven't flown the Wildcat, but it's a derivation of the Lynx. And again, yes, if you're going to go upside down in a helicopter, the Bolko 105, if you've watched the Bond movies, you can see those go upside down. They've been doing aerobatics for a while as Red Bull aircraft. They've got a very similar rotor head. It's a very rigid rotor head. If you're going to go to a wedding and you want to drink champagne at the back of a helicopter, don't do it in a Bolko or Lynx because the ride quality is rough. Do it in the back of a Jet Ranger. So it depends what you're trying to do with your helicopter or your aeroplane, really.
Are there any little aeroplanes that you haven't flown yet, Chris, that you quite fancy having a go with?
I'm sure there are loads of little aeroplanes that I haven't flown yet. I mean, you were just mentioning another 600 kilogram aeroplane just now. I mean, people are churning them out, dare I say it. I mean, the 600 kilogram limit, if you like, and the fact that we're now allowed to fly those in the UK, it is going to open a lot of doors. My caveat to all those people rushing out with their checkbooks is, you know, be just cautious of what you buy, because you don't get anything for free in any world that we live in, and aviation in particular. And a lot of my time has been spent testing an aircraft that's been the pride and joy of somebody. I'll give you a good example. So a pilot who's out there, very nice guy, wanted to get a helicopter modified. He had a problem with his hand, and he wanted to be able to get a helicopter modified so he can fly it with his left hand instead of his right hand. And in Italy, you can get microlight helicopters under 450 kilograms, and they sort of under the radar. They don't need to meet the certification requirements. And he spent 2 or 3 years, a lot of money invested in buying one of these helicopters. His helicopter was on the production line. And thankfully, I think for both of us, he called me up and said, Chris, could you just come and have a look at this? And I said, fine, let me just go out to Italy with you, fly the aircraft just before we spend any more money on it, and see what we're looking at. And it was an extremely difficult to fly aircraft by any definition whatsoever. You know, it was an aircraft that was out to kill you. And it was out to kill me as a very experienced, you know, slightly above average pilot who knew what I was getting into, and I knew how to mitigate the risks. And this was going to, you know, this was a low time PPL who was going to buy this and fly it with the wrong hand. And you just to say, no, you know, I mean, it's cheap as chips, but actually it's not fit for purpose for what you want. And that's not to say that aircraft that are built, you know, economically are bad. That's not what I'm saying. But just be careful when you go out to buy a new airplane. Don't always believe the gloss.
Good stuff. Well, Chris, thank you. I'm just going to flash this picture of the book up again because people have asked to see it.
Yeah. My face is not normally that red. I think that the photographer did something weird or when they pasted it onto the book. But I would recommend the book. The book's quite. It talks about helicopters, aeroplanes, order gyros, warbirds, fast jets, flying parachutes. It even ends up with me completely naked standing in the corridor of a hotel. So if you really want to have nakedness, bad language, and airplanes, it is definitely the book for most of us to buy.
Oh, fantastic! Good stuff. Right.
Well until then.
Yeah, it is a good book as well because I have read it.
Yeah, Ed's read it. You've read it, haven't you? You enjoyed it, I think.
That's it. Yeah, no, it's a good book. I can recommend it. There was one good comment that I flashed up. Vince Chadwick said, and it sounds like this should be used for that helicopter you were talking about. Says this aeroplane is difficult to get into. It should be made impossible.
Yeah, exactly. And there are some aircraft out there that well, you know, read my book. I am critical of some of the aircraft I fly, if not all of them. I mean, it is the problem of a test pilot. You know, you what's your favorite aircraft? Almost none of them. You know, because you get into everything and find things wrong. Either because you're doing a kind of car MOT airworthiness test and you find things wrong, or you just go, do you know what? Oh, if you just spend a bit more time on this, you could have made it better. Those avionics could have been easier to understand. That touch screen could have worked if I, you know, hadn't had to punch 15 different pages to get to where I wanted to be. You know, there's always things that you can comment on that would improve things. So, and there's lots of examples in my book of that kind of thing.
Brilliant. Yeah. Well, yeah, we've got a link in the comments for people, so click that and go and buy it. Chris, thank you very much for joining us. And
absolute pleasure. Nice to chat to you all.
Thank you. It's time for Fantasy Hangar now.
Thanks, Chris. Very good, very good, and it is a good book. I got a sneak preview of it before it got printed. So
I'm going to go and order my copy after this.
Excellent. So
where's Chris fly from?
Tonight, I can't. The only thing I can remember about the idea for this was that Ian came up with it, and normally we're inspired by stuff. Were we inspired by something with this? Either way, it was. So it was the Taste of Flights. That's it. Yeah. So it was all about picking an exciting aeroplane for our fancy hangar that we would use to take people flying in, take someone for their first flight. So who's first?
Dave.
But my choice doesn't need much introduction because it's such a well-known aeroplane.
Hang on, Jeff. He hasn't said what it is yet.
I quite agree. So anyway, my choice does not need a great deal of introduction. It's a big, beautiful biplane. It's the Stearman Model 75.
Wow.
And it's built as a military trainer during the 1930s and 40s. It's got that beautiful exposed radial engine up front, exposed cockpits, and it's not a very fast aeroplane, but it can do limited aerobatics, and it's just a beautiful thing to fly. The one time I flown one, it was, and I think people will be blown away, literally, if they.
So can we just flash Dave's choice back up again there? So I can see the pilot, I can't see the passenger.
Well, he's positioned himself so he can do formation flying and keep an eye on the camera ship.
And I it's a good choice, Dave. But I have flown in a Stearman, and my recollection of being in the Stearman is that like the sides are up around here. I think Ian's flown in one as well.
In fact, I think if I'm not mistaken,
that's
that
it.
could well be,
I know Ian's flown in one because he's in that one. Yeah.
I love the Stearman. It was a great airplane. I have to say though, Dave, I mean, if you want to take someone flying for their very first flight, and it happens to be February, and they walk around the corner, that's going to be a toughie. That is going to be a toughie. So I having came up with the idea, I kind of took this brief seriously, and I thought to myself, well, what do you want? Really, you want someone to walk around the corner to your fancy hangar, see all these amazing aircraft that you've got, and say, "Hey, do you fancy coming in for a flight?" And they go, "Oh my God, me in a little airplane? Yeah, why not?" And so, what do you want? You want something that's comfortable. You want something that's docile, so they can have a go. You want something that's safe and simple. So I picked this. Whoa, where did I pick? It's gone. Come back. I picked this. Cessna Caravan. I thought to most people, Cessna Caravan is going to be a small aircraft, isn't it? But it flies a little bit like a 172, so it's not got huge amounts of vices. I'm sure Chris will disagree that there may be some vices hidden somewhere, but most of them are pretty well disguised if they are. It's comfortable, it's warm, it's reliable. You go in and out of little strips. It's just a great aircraft for someone's first flight. And I thought, pretty much every fantasy hangar really deserves a Cessna Caravan, and Cessna Caravan would be a great little runabout to have, wouldn't it? You know, you need to go down the builders merchants, buy some sand, take the Cessna Caravan. You need to take your mates for a barbecue. Sorry,
half a ton of sand and cement, chuck in the back.
Exactly. Yeah. So there you go, Cessna Caravan. That was my take people flying.
I do like your logic of going, look, it's my small aeroplane, and they're going, oh yeah, that's quite small.
Well, compared to some of them in my fantasy hangar. So
Rob
there you go.
Excellent choice, Ian.
Thank you very much, Rob. Thank you, John.
Catkin, Dave. Catkin was calling out your Stearman choice. So the passenger's vision is blocked by wings in all directions.
Well, straight ahead. It's not sideways. You can look out sideways. It's only in turns you can't see up there.
Who's next?
Ed, it's your turn.
It's you, Ed.
It's me. Oh, excellent. Now, it's good to see Darren Lewington so far is suggesting Cub, and more Cub. So I would have picked a J3 Cub, but that's already in my fancy hangar because a long time ago, in fact, it might have even been the first or second fancy hangar, we did favourite bindling aeroplane, and the Cub won. So I'm not going to add another Cub, and I thought I'll go for something else that's a bit Cub-like, but gives that flying experience where you're even more in touch with nature. So I picked this. The Zlin Aviation Savage Bobber. Okay. So I know you're all laughing. So, but it's got a nice, reliable Rotax 912. So there's no saying to the passenger, "I hope it starts." You know, it's a bit hot. It'll always go. And when it comes to getting in, there's none of this going, "Oh, don't touch that; it'll snap off in your hand," or "That's weak," or you'll go through the fabric, because there's only tubes and a seat. It's like sit there and enjoy. Cruise speed 78 knots, stall speed 29 knots. The service ceiling is the only daft figure, 13,400 feet, and the fact that there's no cabin heater won't help. frankly, there's no cabin. But this is an aeroplane that's all about showing your passengers the world from 501 feet. And I think this would be a great way to do it, just maybe only on a summer's day. Or
I
summer
think as well, the seats are brown.
I think they may feel slightly exposed. Can you imagine you're flying along in that? Your passengers in the back. You go, "Excuse me, can you just get the ruler from the satchel in the back? I forgot it." It's just like.
Steve McGee, that's a bit harsh, Steve. It's a modified wheelie bin. It's a lot better than that. All I can say is thanks, Darren. Ed wins.
Darren, behave. Okay, Johnny.
Yeah, so I thought, well, if you're going to take somebody flying for the first time, you want them to smile, don't you? You want them to grin. So I've picked the RV14. And yeah, I mean, it's spacious, it's good looking, it's comfortable, it's fast. It can do lots of great things in and out of strips. You can show them the full variety of flying that you can do, from in and out of somewhere tiny to flying up in the flight levels. I think the 14 would be, for me, it'd be the perfect airplane to get people into flying. I think they would come back with a grin on their face.
That's true.
I'm going to bring Chris Taylor back in briefly. Well, not briefly.
Yes,
he's
definitely.
a good judge.
I'm back.
So, Chris, I don't know if you were paying attention to what we were just talking about there about aeroplanes to take someone flying for the first time in. And
yeah.
Given that you must have flown half a dozen aircraft or so yourself over the years, what would your choice be?
Again, it so depends. I mean, the RV14, I tested that. The first one of those in the UK. In fact, Ed knows that because you were filming me as I landed, weren't you?
That's it. And that one in the photo is the one that you flew, but after it got painted.
Yeah. And that was, lovely aeroplane. I really enjoyed that. If I'd known Ed was filming me as I came over the hedge, my landing might have been worse. But might put me under too much pressure, I think. But no, lovely aeroplane. I mean, I think if you're flying somebody for the first time, and I've got children, I've taken them flying. I'm really looking forward to taking my grandson flying. You just want something safe, don't you? Get them airborne, looking at the world from 2,000 feet up, and almost anything else is a bonus, really. So I think for me, taking somebody flying for the first time, it's about safety rather than what you're actually in. Because most punters who haven't flown before, they're going to be gobsmacked by whatever they're flying in, and so it's not so much about the aeroplane, it's about the environment. You take them flying in, you reassure them. Yeah, that would be scary, wouldn't it? If you hadn't flown before, that would be very scary. When I take people flying in the Eurostar, that's a lovely little aeroplane to acquaint people to flying. It's safe, it's got a good field of view, it's comfortable. What's not to like? I love taking people flying in the Jet Ranger as a helicopter. Again, it's safe, comfortable. It's an ideal way to get people into the environment, and it's only the likes of us gathered around this table that get the nuances of all these different types, isn't it? Really, for the first few flights, most people are just so awestruck by what they're being put through. So keep it safe, keep it simple.
I think what you're trying to say, Chris, is Cessna Caravan is ideal, isn't it?
Well, there's nothing wrong with that. There is nothing wrong with that. I was out in Africa a couple of years ago with my wife doing some stuff, and we flew around in the back of those quite a lot. I'd flown in the front previously, and apart from the fact it's only got one engine rather than two, if we set that aside, nothing wrong with that aeroplane at all. Really, it does the job. It does what it's designed to do quite well. So yeah, fine.
Yeah, I did think about a King Air, but yeah.
There's
Great.
nothing wrong with the King Air. I mean, the King Air is a lovely go-to twin turbine. Years and years ago, I got involved in that debate about one engine versus two. What's wrong with four? Bring back the 747, but
bring back the de Havilland Heron or something.
Sorry.
The de Havilland, is it the Heron that's got four engines?
Yeah, the Heron. Yeah, Heron. Yeah. A lot of those older airplanes had four engines because they needed the horsepower, but engines are more reliable now. The one thing I was going to say to you, Johnny, as a test pilot, what do you learn to pass on? The downside of being a test pilot is the pessimist or the pessimistic attitude you end up with. So unfortunately, when I now go flying, I spend all my time looking for a field to land in. You know, I kid you not. I mean, from the moment I start the engine to the moment I'm drinking a glass of beer in the clubhouse, I'm thinking about where I'm going to land it when the engine stops. And as you will know, if you read my book, Ed has, I've had a lot of engines stop. And so I say that without embarrassment. You know, the engines do stop. But if you're ready for it, you're prepared for it, you're thinking about it, you're looking for fields to land in, it won't catch you out. And if every time you go flying on your own, you practice one, or every time you fly with somebody like me as an instructor, you say, do you know what? Give me a hard one. Give me a difficult one. You know, give me one where I'm lower than I would normally be. Don't give me one at 5,000 feet, you know, when it's June clear and there's no cloud. Give me one at 800 feet where I normally fly around, and let me try and do one of those, you know, because that's the danger, isn't it? We do one on our skills test at the PPL, and it's always at 3,000 feet because that's how the pattern is. And we then fly around at 800 feet because there's a cloud base at 1,000 feet, and we go, oh, now what do I do when the engine stopped? You know, where's low key? Where's high key? How do I do this now? So, yeah, but that's the downside of being a test pilot. You become an inherent pessimist.
Jolly good.
So
anyway,
fancy hangar. It turns out it's a resounding win for Johnny. all I have to say, Richard Kennedy, safe, Ed. Did you hear that? Safe.
Great. Thank you very much. Well, thank you very much, Chris, for that input.
Cheers, Chris.
Absolutely great. Really enjoyed it.
Cheers. Dave, got any events coming up?
Well, there's not much coming up, but there's a few looking ahead. So if you're into helicopters, then the world's biggest helicopter event, the Heli Expo, or HAI as people call it, is on 8th and 10th of March in Dallas. The first event over here that I've come across really is at Compton Abbas on the 26th of March. They're having an open day. So if you know someone who's in roughly the Compton Abbas area and wanting to learn to fly, go along there. 9th of April, Pilot Careers Live. Also on 9th of April is the Vintage Piper Aircraft Club flying at Slape. And just one more looking ahead at Easter, 16th and 17th of April, Easter at Easter Flying. This is the Easter flying at Easter Airfield.
Sounds good to me.
Johnny. Yeah, so as Simon mentioned at the beginning, he's going to be running a webinar next Wednesday, 7 p.m, just for club members. So if you're not a member, join and you can get hold of this. It's going to be all about spring weather for pilots. And we'll email a link out on Wednesday afternoon for you, so keep an eye on your inboxes. In fact, it'll probably come out just after the next live stream extra, so we'll give you another reminder then. So yeah, that should be a really good start to the webinar season. And if you are not a member, join. £7.50 per quarter, £30 for the year. The price is going up very soon, so if you're not a member, join.
And just to commit ourselves, next week's live stream, we'll begin to tease the big changes that are coming down the pipeline in hopefully, fingers crossed, not too many weeks' time.
Big changes.
So we'll begin talking about that next week. Is that it? Have you got any more?
So.
Join, leave a comment, hit the bell, all that kind of thing. I think that's about it. So thank you very much. I know there's a whole bunch of people going flying tomorrow because the weather looking good. So I hope to be up there myself with a bit of luck, touch wood. Fly safe, have a great weekend, and see you Wednesday if you're a club member, Thursday if you're not. Thank you very much.
Fly safe, everybody.
Bye.
Fly safe. Oops.